Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today about King's PhD program in mental health research for health professionals. My name is Nora Park, and I'm the PhD program manager. I'll be administering our webinar today, and you will be shortly hearing from the rest of the program team. Just a couple of things before we start. Firstly, I wanted to remind everyone that we are recording this meeting, and it will be made available on our website afterwards. Secondly, if you have not yet done so, please kindly mute yourself during the presentation to minimize any disturbances. And lastly, we have incorporated your pre-submitted questions into the presentation, so there is no need to resubmit them. However, if you have any new questions during the presentation, can I please ask you to post them in the chat or wait until the end to ask them during the FAQ session. As for the presentations today, we will cover the basics of the program and the fellowship offer. We will also talk a little about what support you'll be receiving during the program. Then for a large part, we will focus on the application process, discuss equality, diversity and inclusion, as well as research culture for the program. We will also tell you a bit more about how the program integrates with clinical practice. In the last part, we will give you a chance to ask questions, and we will go over any questions you posted in the chat. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nora. So I'll take over from here for the next few slides. It's going to be passing the baton from one of us to the next. So my name is Matthew Hotoff, and I'm director of the program, and my background is as a psychiatrist. And over the next few minutes, you'll also meet Sandrine Thuré, who is our lead for recruitment, with a background in neuroscience, Professor Stephanie Hatch, who is our lead for culture, equality, diversity and inclusion, who is a social epidemiologist, Professor Alan Simpson, who is leading on partner organisation and clinical liaison, whose background is in mental health nursing, and Professor Rona Moss-Morris, who is our lead for training and welfare and has a background in clinical psychology. So the diversity of our team is really important to note, that we're trying to represent different disciplines, both clinical disciplines across nursing, psychology, psychiatry, and also different scientific areas of interest. And the program is designed to be very broad, covering a wide range of different types of scientific questions. And it's also designed to be available for a wide range of health professionals. So it's not just about doctors, and it's not just about psychiatrists even. It's about a much wider range of people interested in mental health science. But to be eligible, you have to be registered with a healthcare professional organisation in the UK. So that's the director and co-directors. The linchpin of the whole thing is Nora Park, who you've already met. Nora, the program manager, and also works in the King's Clinical Academic Training Office as a manager there. And you'll hear a bit more about CATO, as we call the Clinical Academic Training Office, in due course. But as you're preparing for this, many of your questions will end up going to Nora, who will then pass them on to us if she can't answer them, which is pretty unusual. Nora knows most things. So moving on, next slide, please, is just a bare bones of the program. So this is a program which is funded by the Wellcome Trust, awarded to the university, and it provides 5 fellowships a year for 5 years. And we've already appointed our first cohort of 5 fellows, starting in October this year. A couple of them have already started. Some are joining a bit later, and the fellowship offers 3 years for you, with home fees paid, a salary which is essentially equivalent to the salary you'd have as a clinician. So the idea is that you're not disadvantaged by changing into a research career, and research costs of up to 50,000 over the course of the 3 years, which is a pretty generous amount by PhD program standards. So one can do significant projects here. It also includes travel expenses, including childcare, if you have to go to conferences and arrange additional childcare and so on, and training costs for our fellows. The PhD is awarded from King's College London, so you're registered as a PhD student with King's College London, and the employment contract is usually from King's College London as well, although it is possible, and this came up as one of the potential questions, it is possible to have a secondment from a host NHS organisation and be seconded to King's College London, as long as the host organisation will provide the support and so on which we'd expect, so you're not disadvantaged in any way. We work very carefully to ensure that we have continuity of service and so on, and that you're not disadvantaged as far as we're able to manage that. You're not disadvantaged by moving organisations, but some people will prefer to remain with a host NHS organisation. The scheme is very closely linked, well, it sits within, I should say, the King's Clinical Academic Training Office. And Nora, do you want to say a little bit about that right now?
Thank you, Matthew. So the King's Clinical Academic Training Office offers a single point of contact for advice, best practice, and information on academic careers, recruitment, training, and development for all health professional researchers at all stages of training. So we have a quarterly newsletter and a bespoke website. Some of the examples that we've recently provided in training for specifically health professionals are advancing academia, managing dual careers, and focus on funding. And in addition to the Cato offering, all PhD students at King's will also be able to access training provided by the Health Sciences Doctoral Training Centre and the Centre for Doctoral Studies. This includes over 80 different training courses, access to on-demand learning, and other resources.
Great, thank you. So on to the next slide then, please. So this is this single slide kind of gives a bit of a structure of what we're trying to offer. And it's a bit busy, but I'll try and take you through it step by step. At the moment, we're in year -1, so this is the recruitment part of it. You'll hear from Sandrine about the way in which we manage recruitment and what's expected from you in terms of doing that. Then you've got years 1 to 3 when you're actually in the programme itself, but we do take seriously the idea that you're not just in the programme, and we try and support transition into future career roles, and we're very interested in future career destinations. For example, people going on, the doctors going on to academic clinical lecturers, the non-medics going to integrated clinical and practitioner academic program run between Health Education England and NIHR, and other roles, recognizing actually that some people get a PhD, but don't necessarily stay in the academic sector. Some people will move back into a clinical practice, but use their PhD learning to influence that, and other people may go into industry and so on. So we want to support people with a wide range of different career aspirations. Now, going to the program itself, you'll see there are 3 blocks, vertical blocks. So on the left, you have mentoring and support. And we take this very seriously, that you're moving from a predominantly clinical role into a research role, and thinking about a career in academic as a clinical academic is challenging, and you need as much support around you as possible. And we have a number of external mentors who have kindly agreed to provide that support, and it's something we take incredibly seriously as being necessary. As I say, not just thinking about the fellowship itself, but also thinking about future careers and the things you need. So that's a key part of it. We also have a system of keeping checks on how things are going, which are the vertical blocks on the right, including the regular monitoring system we have for all PhD students within the university, which involves essentially reporting progress every 4 months, but also some additional progress which we as a leadership team want to see. So we are kind of and this is again supportive rather than something which should be seen as persecutory. It is there to ensure that you are getting the support you require, that the supervisor is meeting you, that all the things which we expect to happen in the program are actually happening. So then the meat of this is these blocks in the middle. And in year one, you start off with an induction week. This, because of the nature of the staggered intake we've had, we're actually pushing this back for the current group to February this year. But it involves a certain number of generic skills training which you need, for example, research ethics and research integrity, very important to us, about an awareness of issues of culture, diversity and inclusion, the importance of patient and public involvement, open science, research design and statistics, and critical thinking. So these are all things which apply whatever subject you're going to be doing, whether you're going to be doing wet lab work, neuroimaging, using big data sets, or doing something very qualitative. These are relevant whatever the type of research you're doing, and in a way we want to bring everyone together to offer that. Then you will see that there are three grey blocks in year one, and these represent the three main strands of the program. So essentially the program is designed to be quite open in terms of the different types of project people can do, but we've blocked it into three main groups, and those three main groups are around translational neuroscience research, and the translational neuroscience is everything from so the idea is that this could be something where you're looking at research on animal studies with the aim of translating it into humans, or using insights from basic research in neuroimaging studies or other technologies in humans, experimental medicine and so on. So that basically is, broadly speaking, a biological mechanistic research underpinning mental disorders. The second block, which is data science and digital technologies research, is around the use of data. We've had an explosion of data relevant to mental health research, but also the ability to use digital technologies to intervene. So we like to see proposals which develop your skills as data scientists, but also as scientists who can develop and test interventions using digital mechanisms. And the third is social science, public mental health and policy research. So this is around in a way the more societal aspects of research. We're expecting people to use both qualitative and quantitative data to try and explore these sorts of questions, and the questions might relate to the nature of trying to provide interventions for primary prevention of mental disorders, or trying to understand disadvantages which follow having a mental disorder and how those could be alleviated. So it's designed to be very wide, but we do ask people to identify and develop projects which are blocked into these three broad areas. And for each of those three areas, skills training is developed with the student and supervisor in order to make that relevant to you. So the idea is that it's not a one-size-fits-all. You, with your supervisor, will identify what skills you need to develop, both for your project, but also for your future career, and we expect to see that built into your program of study. The black line there in the middle of the year one, or sorry, the bottom of year one, is the PhD upgrade and report, and that's something which all of our students in all the schemes have to do, and essentially it's a staging post to check that progress is going well. It's a formal process, and you have a viva, and so that's a small, usually two reviewers who will quiz you about the progress, and it's partly to check on progress being made, but it's also making sure that you again are getting the support you require, and providing recommendations to you and supervisors if there are any concerns. So again, not just designed as something which is a bridge to cross, but something which is designed to be supportive. And then in years 2 and 3, you'll see the 3 white blocks there. So we allow clinical practice, and actually clinical practice is something which goes across all 3 years. So you are allowed to do up to 1 day a week of clinical work, which can be, which is outside of the program, but we are happy to advise and link people up if you've moved from a different trust and want to do something locally. There is flexible training which is designed around each of our fellows, which may involve a whole range of different types of activity, conferences, skills workshops, internships, and so on. And there's also cohort building activity, the sorts of things we deal with in the induction week, but also going on forward. So we will be offering opportunities for you to come together as a group and develop those sort of generic skills which are applicable to all people who are learning research, developing research training. And then at the end, you have your thesis and viva, and we don't see that as the end of the game. That there will be support in terms of helping you transition into your future career, which is partly about mentorship and partly about the program directors offering support and advice. There is a limited, and I don't want to sort of raise expectations beyond the reasonable, but there's a limited amount of bridging funding for people who may require it set aside in year 4. We haven't currently devised the process for that, but it is something we have in mind, as often people need that in order to be able to maximize the results of the PhD. So that, in essence, is the program, and I'm going to hand over now to Professor Sandrine Touré, who will talk about the selection process.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks, Matthew, for a really nice, good overview of the program. So I'm going to take you through, indeed, the recruitment process, starting with the timeline, and I will briefly touch on eligibility and then the selection criteria we are going to apply. But, I just put in the chat the link again that will take you directly to the application page. So obviously we are now in stage 1. So the submission deadline for your application is 1st of December at 1 o'clock GMT. And then there will be a stage 1 shortlisting, and I will go through the criteria in the following slide. And then you should hear from us in the week starting the first week of January. And then from then on, we move to stage 2, where if you have been told you were selected, then you are going to reach out to the supervisor to start developing an application with the supervisor. And then from that on, in stage 2, so the candidate and the supervisor at one point will say, okay, we pair up, we decided, we commit to each other, and you let us know by the end of January. It's just for us to make sure that everyone found the supervisor that they were looking for. Otherwise, like this year, we were helping people to find a good match if it was not happening naturally. And then you have quite some time to work with your supervisor. So that's really important to keep in mind. It's just not you alone writing the application. It's going to be already from the start a nice collaboration with your supervisors. And then the deadline is the 3rd of April. And then we have a stage 2 shortlisting. Then you will be informed early May. And then we have the interview quite soon after that. But you will see, the content of the interview is very much based, or the short talk you will have to be is very much based on your application. So you should be quite ready to go through interview with the document you have put together. And then we have the outcome that are towards end of May. And then we expect you to start the PhD in October. So when we look at that, I mentioned that at stage 2, then this is when you are informed that you will be able to reach out to supervisor to pair. But what you can already do now, if you are not sure if you want to apply for this program, or if you want to browse a little bit what supervisors are available through the program, you can go to our website and then look for the supervisor pool. I can put the link after in the chat, the direct link. Or maybe Nora, you can put it in the chat. Maybe they can just hit and find it. And you just have to scroll down. You will see our faces, the director, and then you continue, and then you see all the supervisors that are coming through. So you can already, look at this list and already think about, yeah, I think this is a match. This person is doing something interesting. And it's someone I would like to reach out if I'm selected to go through stage 2 to develop a proposal. So feel free to go and browse there, and there will be a couple of more supervisors that will be added in the next couple of weeks, right, Nora? So we have expanded the pool now that this is our second round. So you can go back and check. But in any case, you don't have to commit to any supervisor until you have been informed you are moving to stage 2. So if we can go back, so yeah, so this is it. So basically, this is the whole timeline for the application. And now I just want to highlight a little bit the eligibility criteria on the next slide, please, Nora. Thank you. So obviously, as Matthew highlighted at the start of this webinar, you must be practicing health or social care professionals and be registered with a national professional regulatory body. So here on this slide, there are a couple of examples, but again, if you go on the website, there is a link to the entire list where the Wellcome Trust, so the funding body for this program, has a clear list and definition that we have to follow. For medical graduates, you must be registered on a UK Republic of Ireland specialist training program or must be a registered GP. This program is not permitted to recruit fellow to undertake an intercalated MD PhD, and all fellow must have completed their undergraduate degree and be registered with the relevant professional body. And then finally, just to highlight that so this program is really to support healthcare professionals looking to combine clinical and an academic career. So fellows or students seeking to undertake a PhD who are not health professionals should not be considering this program. We have other programs at King's, and again on the website we have link that will fit that bill. So if you are not a healthcare professional, look throughout our other program that are also covering mental health. So we have one Wellcome and one MRC that would cover this interest. And I'm going to touch on now on the selection criteria. So stage 1, which is where we are at. So you can download on the application website basically a template form, a Word form, that will ask you all the questions that you will have to complete online. So I advise you to complete the form on the Word form first, and then you can copy paste everything. And you will see this form is designed that we can assess that actually you are aiming to pursue a research career. So there are very directed questions to that. We also want that you show a clear understanding of how research will progress knowledge within the field of mental health. And you will see there is a directed question for us to assess that. And then finally, we want to see some research experience and potential. So the extent, is not strict. For example, it could be through undergraduate or postgraduate research project experience, or training, or even informal placements, workplace roles, or academic training position for health professionals. So we can't put a clear definition. You must, in the question I saw that, do I need a master, MSc? No, you do not need that, because maybe you will show your research experience throughout other training or informal placement. So, so this is quite broad, as long as you are able to demonstrate some type of research experience. So this is stage 1. And then, so if you are called and selected for stage 2, this is where you build your proposal with your supervisor. And to assess stage 1 and stage 2, So the proposal itself and then the interview after will assess your critical thinking. So we will also look at your personal development plan. So there is, we ask for a plan in the stage 2 application. And of course, we look at the project, how you have worked with supervisor to develop something significant, a clear research question, but also it has to be feasible. But the supervisor pool are quite experienced and they should be able to guide you as well to help you design this project. And then we also are going to see your communication and engagement skills during stage 2 and stage 3. And I think this is it for me. And I'm going to pass the baton. I think this is to Professor Stephanie Hatch to talk about diversity, inclusion, and equality. Thanks, Stephanie.
Great, thank you, Sandrine. Just as Matthew said, I just wanted to emphasize that equality, diversity, and inclusion is integrated throughout the program in all aspects of it. We're very focused on creating an environment in which the PhD fellows can thrive. And this is an environment that's not only positive and collaborative, but also thinking about building your collegiate networks and creating environments in a research culture that is very respectful of all those involved. In order to achieve this, we've taken on a zero tolerance policy to bullying and harassment. We take this very seriously and also, emphasize and make mandatory that all of our supervisors are trained in EDI and keep that training up to date. Our EDI team here at the IOPPN provides a wide range of EDI information and resources that will support you and other staff, as well as the wider community. And then also wanted to say that the PhD fellows, they have a voice on our advisory board and along with, the ability to speak through that student representative, you also have the opportunity during the annual monitoring and evaluation along with your supervisors to feed into the program. Do I have the next slide, please? And then really just wanted to talk about our goals. So in designing this program, we really wanted to make sure that we were working towards developing and maintaining a diverse and inclusive workforce. And to do that, we wanted to specifically think about increasing the inclusion of 3 underrepresented groups. And so that's health professionals with lived experience of mental disorders, people from diverse racial and ethnic groups, and nurses. So I wanted to particularly encourage people with those characteristics to apply for this fellowship. I will now pass on to Professor Rona Moss-Morris, who will take over for the next slide. Thank you. Rona, you're on mute. Oh.
Yeah, I just realised that. Sorry about that. You think about after all these months and years, I would have got that right. So welcome everybody, and thanks to all the others for the detail that they've given you already. Just really to say, and it follows on what Stephanie was saying about the importance of diversity and inclusion, is also the importance of creating a positive research culture around all our PhD students. So in this diagram, you can see the PhD fellow is at the heart of it. There's our program wrapped around that. There's the CD&I work that you've already heard a little bit about, making sure that there is their culture. Then in terms of the other resources that are available, obviously each student sits within a particular department. If enrolled with one of us at the Institute of Psychiatry, Psychology and Neuroscience, and each department will have a slightly different structure, but most supervisors are linked to a particular lab group. There'll be seminars and other activities, other PhD students that fellows will get to know through that particular department. So that kind of relates to the top of the bubble here, the research group. And then that's also managed with the subcommittee from that particular department, who will review, for instance, the proposal that gets accepted and so forth, and will do the regular help with the regular reporting of progress and so forth. So that's within departments. We've also already heard from Nora about Cato more generally. We also have a sort of training, other training programs related to the Centre for Doctoral Studies at King's. So there's a lot of external resources that we ask students to tap into for where people need particular training needs around research, presuming that most people during the journey of the PhD, there's certain areas where they want to upskill. One of the things you already heard from Matthew, though, as part of that, is also to make sure that fellows have more, we also include a more individualized education plan, and that will be worked out with supervisors as well as some of the where other directors can input that process. Then there's also specific mentoring for fellows. So that will include an external mentor. So that would be somebody within the particular field of study who's a well-known research academic or clinical academic, and we will help make those links. We're also planning to buddy people up with a PhD, with somebody else doing a PhD who is a year or two ahead or recently finished, who's juggling the clinical academic side of PhDs. So as obviously our cohort kind of increases, those peers will come from our particular program, but at the moment we're reaching out to other parts of King's to help put that in place. People also have a personal tutor, which is usually linked within the department. So there's lots of individual mentoring around those the particular project that you're working on, and then student bodies as well. So there's various local PhD forums, student reps to represent PhD students, both within King's and with the particular faculty that you're working. Then, because obviously most people are coming clinical, one of the exciting things that certainly drew me to come and work at King's was the King's Health Partners. So we're very closely linked with South London and the Maudsley, our mental health trust, but also with King's College London and with Guy's and St Thomas's Trust. So we've got 3 very large trusts within London, which has a very diverse community that we can work with quite closely, as well as obviously outreach to other trust partners. So we work very much in a partnership model with our trusts. So for those who want to be both embedded directly into mental health, but also people interested in integrated health, where they might be putting the mental health within the more acute care, primary care and community settings. So hopefully that just gives you a little bit of a heads up of what we offer in terms of training and mentorship. And I think we're pretty much now at the end and coming to the questions. So I'll hand back to Nora and Matthew.
I think we've got a bit for Alan.
Oh, sorry, apologies.
No worries. No worries. So good afternoon, everybody. You've heard already from the other speakers that this is very much about developing clinical academic careers. So we want people to draw on and build on their clinical expertise and bring that into the research field, and then develop their research skills and abilities to develop a program of research, and the two should be supporting each other. So this program is very much about helping you continue your clinical involvement and clinical practice. So we found with current PhD fellows, they value flexibility in organising clinical work to maintain those clinical skills, and we want to support that and build on that. And we think it's very important that such placements ensure that you can develop and maintain your professional ties, and these are vital in developing that future clinical research career. As you've just heard, King's Health Partners provide a range of clinical placements for PhD fellows, which allows continued clinical activities. But we would also be working with you, and if you're linked with another health service or voluntary sector organisation where clinical work could be maintained and you wish to do it there, we will work with you to reach out to those organisations to support you obtaining a suitable placement and suitable types of experience to build on your skills. And we'll make sure any clinical sessions are appropriately utilised to support that work. Also, it's quite important to say that in setting up your contract with us, whether it's to be working contracted with King's or being seconded into King's, we'll ensure there's no loss of benefit when transitioning between the NHS and university employers. Supporting your career paths throughout and beyond the PhD is very important to us and very important to this fellowship program. We're very aware that for many people, and particularly as we've touched on, nurses, allied health professionals, there's often been a lack of a career structure to maintain clinical academic careers, and we want to help address that, and this program is very much part of that. So we want to consult with PhD fellows about their future career plans. We'll be doing that very early on. But then around the mid-fellowship point, we will be reviewing with you your future career trajectories, and what you would hope to do and how we might support you in that. And we can offer targeted support and mentoring from people either within King's or in external organisations. And as again, you've already heard, we have a number of people who've already volunteered to be mentors for such career development. And we'll be advocating for nurses and allied health professionals who often face those additional difficulties in establishing clinical academic careers. So we can work with you to work with your host organisations to try and help you find a suitable placement, suitable opportunities to develop that career. Thank you, Honora. So in terms of supporting those future careers, in year 3, the cohort's quarterly group sessions will be very much focused on developing that future career. What are you going to do next? How can we support you in that? We'll be engaging with NIHR incubators, so particularly the mental health incubator around developing those careers. And we'll be inviting talks to the fellows from programme officers, from the various funders, and from the King's Research Development Manager. We'll identify opportunities for those who wish to remain in academia, maybe for postdoctoral fellowships, NIHR academic clinical lectureships for doctors, and postdoctoral fellowship opportunities for other disciplines. And there's a range of those around, supported by different bodies. And King's having an incredible, through the Cato office and others, we have a great awareness of opportunities that are out there, funding opportunities and placement opportunities that we can tap you into and help you apply for. But also, for those people who want to go back into the NHS or maybe into industry or another organisation, we would support you with that as well, to try and help you maintain a clinical academic role within that sector. As Matthew touched on right at the very beginning, we don't see this as a 3-year programme and then we dump you and leave you. This is very much about maintaining support. So there will be some bridging fellowships available for some fellows to help support them in obtaining suitable funding through postdoc fellowships and so on. Those things will be available and we can help you apply for those. There'll be mentorship continuing beyond the end of the programme. We'll be very keen to maintain contact with you and help support your developing career. And King's Careers and Employability Service will be available for 2 years following graduation to help you with that. And of course, if ever you wanted to come back and ask us for questions or support in that, we would be available and very happy to do that. So thank you very much. And now back to Nora now, I think.
Thank you so much, Alan. Thank you, everyone. So we've got some pre-submitted questions. Quite a few of them were about eligibility, research project plans, and clinical practice. So we'll go through these first, and then we can look at any questions you posted in the chat, or if you want to ask any in person. So just to start, for Matthew, so we have received some questions about the research project themes and identifying them and whether someone's interest fits the program. Would you be able to give any advice on that?
I think a lot of it depends on, I mean, so there's a range of different potential supervisors who are on the page, and in a way, this is a question which I suppose we've designed it so that the 3 pillars of the 3 scientific areas of interest cover a very wide range of mental health science. So are designed to be fairly inclusive, and so I mean, we can take individual queries about whether something would be within or outside scope if you send emails to Nora, and she'll pass it on to the relevant one of us to try and help with. It's also something to try and develop when you're developing the project with your supervisor. Sandrine, I think, has to go, so she had a lecture to give, so she's saying goodbye. So yeah, I mean, I think the advice is look at the website and look at the sort of supervisor's interests and see whether there's something there which would fit what you're wanting to do. But do send us an email and we'll try and answer the question.
Thank you, Matthew. The other question that I think you might be able to answer is whether it's possible to start in February instead of October due to rotation of medical training.
Yes, so I mean, we've already done that. We are trying to design this to be flexible, as I'm sure, as I hope, what we've presented so far indicates. So we want to take into account individual circumstances. There are a couple of points during the academic year when people can join the programme, and February is one of them.
And last one for you, Matthew. Can fellows be based outside of London?
Well, it depends what you mean by based. So I think the main thing is that all of us have got used to working remotely and doing things, and of course one can achieve much more. I think this is one again where there's a degree of flexibility which can be allowed, but I think ultimately part of the experience of doing a PhD is being part of a team, whether that's an old-fashioned laboratory or a grouping in data science and so on. So we would be concerned about to be able to work remotely if that fits with your program is a possibility, but we still expect people to come in on a regular basis and be socialized within a wider team. So yes, but I think is the answer to that.
Thank you. The next one is for Alan. So we have a question whether it is mandatory to work clinically or whether this is flexible.
No, there's a degree of flexibility. We certainly encourage it because we think there are advantages of drawing on your clinical experience in your research work and vice versa, applying some of your research knowledge and skills within the clinical setting. And that's very much what this program is about. But we understand for some people it's not something that they necessarily wish to do. So there is some flexibility.
And the second one is whether part-time study is allowed.
Yeah, we can allow part-time study. Again, there are some advantages with doing it full-time if possible, but you can do it part-time. What we aren't able to allow is people to do it part-time and have another job. We need a real near full-time commitment to doing this, plus any clinical work, up to 1 day a week. But we wouldn't support someone having another job as well as doing this.
And that's actually the Wellcome Trust stipulation. So they're very clear about this. It's something we don't have any wriggle room on.
And the final question, whether it's possible to continue employment at NHS Trust and do the program via secondment route.
Yeah. So we've already arranged this with at least one person in the first cohort. So yes, if people would prefer to be seconded, and as Matthew said at the beginning, providing you have a trust that's supportive of that and will work with us with that and provide the necessary administrative and other support to make that happen effectively, that's an opportunity. And there are some benefits for some people in the NHS of doing that. There are also some benefits of actually getting employed within KCL. So we can discuss that with you if you're offered a place, but it is a possibility, yes.
Thank you. So now going to the questions in the chat. I think we answered Ruth's question just now. So moving on to Eleanor. And she's asking whether a gap before beginning full-time clinical work will impact the application. So career gaps or study gaps, will they impact?
I think we'd have to look at this on, we'd need to look at the specifics and be clear about whether, what the exact circumstances are, Eleanor. So that's one where you may want to email Nora and we can get back to you. It's quite difficult because people's circumstances are very different in terms of this thing. I mean, just to be clear, for the doctors among you, you need to be in training on a recognised training programme or a GP. For the other health professionals, you don't need to be on a training programme. You can be fully trained as long as you're registered with a UK registration body.
Thank you, Matthew. A question from Amy. I suspect she may be based outside of London, as she's asking where the wages would be based on the fellow's current wages or London wages.
So it attracts London weighting on the programme.
And Claire's asking about additional help with application for potential students with SPLD. Is that specific learning differences?
Difficulties. I mean,
Difficulties?
Stephanie, do you want to pick up on that? Or
Yes, absolutely. We would certainly provide any additional help. So first protocol is always to try and work with your supervisors, but if you needed additional support beyond that, we would certainly look to arrange that.
I wonder if Claire means also the application process and not just after one is starting with the program.
So Claire, if you would get in touch with Nora, we can certainly try and arrange for that to happen within the team, myself or someone else on the team.
Gary is asking clarification about the 1 day of clinical work, whether it can be outside of King's.
Yeah, it can be outside of King's, providing you feel you can organise a suitable placement with suitable opportunities that work for you and will support your programme. Yeah, it can be in a trust or organisation of your choosing.
Thank you. I think that's the end of the questions, unless anyone else has. No, I think that means we've answered all the questions. And if anything comes afterwards, please do email cato@kcl.ac.uk. Oh, let me see. I think there's one more.
Yes, Abigail's said 2 supervisors for the programme. Is it recommended that one of them is clinical? So Abigail, I think it's a question of so I think broadly speaking, the ideal would be to have someone who has a clinical understanding of the topic. Now, probably would in most cases be a clinician, and I think it's helpful to have a supervisor who understands the particular challenges of clinical academics. But it's not actually, that's not actually stipulated. What we're very keen on, though, is making sure that the supervisory team has a diversity to it, which the diversity typically being one person who has a kind of methodological expertise in an area. So it may be a non-clinical academic, in neuroscience or in data science or something like that, or sociology, and the other supervisor having the sort of in-depth clinical understanding of a problem. And now we're not completely prescriptive about that, but what we're trying to avoid is having kind of almost identical supervisors, and it's one of the things which we noted in round 2 last time round, that 1 or 2 of the applicants had sort of ended up with 2 psychiatrists, for example, working on rather similar sorts of topics, and we're trying to get away from that. The other thing to say is that the supervisory team, you have to have 2 supervisors, but we're actually encouraging a somewhat more broader approach. So happily see more than 2 supervisors, and also the supervisors definitely absolutely don't have to be hugely senior. We're trying to encourage, again, supervisors with different sort of experiences. So having a mix in the supervisory team is very important to us.
Can I just ask a question? It's too early for me to consider applying just yet, but I'm just wondering, are these applications offered on a yearly basis?
Yeah, so we have a competition every year. We've had the first competition. There'll be another. I mean, this is the second. There'll be 3 more after that.
Right. So this time next year there would likely be another round.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
anyone else for final questions?
Actually, I've got one more. Sorry, I missed. You might have already answered this, but are these? If a person was accepted, is it a full-time 3-year sort of contract, or can someone work part-time and do it?
So the deal is you can work part-time. I mean, it's really designed for full-time, but you can do it part-time. But what we're not allowed to do is award it to someone who's working, say, 2.5 days a week on the PhD, but also doing 2.5 days of a clinical job and being paid for it. That's not acceptable to the funder. You know, it is, if it's part-time, it's part-time because you're needing to work part-time for, you know, for family reasons or something of that nature.
Okay, thank you.
And we have a question from Justine. Justine, do you want to speak up?
Yeah, so it was an add-on from, I think it was Richard. If not ready just yet, but if there's active competition, is there worth applying this year and then deferring it if you're accepted? So you could try again next year if you weren't accepted, or do we wait till the year that we want to start? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'd encourage you to apply when you feel ready rather than aiming to defer. I think you'll just be disadvantaged if you're not ready. We'll spot it and you're less likely to be awarded it. So I mean,
it's more about the work opportunity. So not wanting to leave current position for say a year or 18 months, but wanting to apply, but also knowing that spaces are awarded, you know, attempting to apply for other clinical academic posts. There's a lot of competition, and some of them say apply and then we'll refine it again the year after, and it might take you 2 or 3 years to be accepted, just because the competition is quite high. Not that you're not ready. I'm just wondering.
I think again, my advice would be when you can actually take it up, because it creates a whole load of issues for us to defer actually. And the funders expect us to basically be filling each cohort with 5 each time.
Makes sense. Thank you.
And we got a couple more questions in the chat. One from Maria about research skill development and for those who have been away from study for a while.
Yes, I mean, we certainly would see that as an integral part of a PhD if you were awarded it, that you would develop research skills as part of the program, and you'd start off with your supervisors working out what the gaps might be, and actually doing that well before as part of the application process, because part of the application would actually have your training needs in it, and it's something we'd ask about at interview as well, likely.
And just to add to that, it's worth saying that at King's there are a wide range of training courses available for people at that level, which you would be encouraged to sign up to in that first year, and that's what many people do. Yeah, there's lots of opportunity there to develop those skills and confidence.
Another one from Abigail, unless Matthew, did you want to continue on what Alan just said?
No, I can pick up Abigail's one, which was about restrictions applying in future rounds if you apply in one round. So if you weren't successful in one round, it doesn't stop you from applying in future rounds. What we would strongly urge you to do is look at the feedback, think critically about the project and supervisory team, etc., and definitely not put the same application in a second time. So we'd that would very likely lead to rejection. We'd be looking to see something which had developed from your previous application.
Sorry, I'm sure you would have covered this, but I just wanted to double check. If the organization does a secondment to attend this training, can the candidate work for 1 day for that organization?
Yes, providing it's clinical work, we would support that. Yes.
Thank you.
There's a question there from Chuck Woody asking what's the chances of a newly qualified nurse being selected. There's nothing to stop you applying and being selected as a newly qualified nurse. In fact, if you're someone who's very keen on research and maybe have some previous research experience and shown an aptitude for research and interest in it, and you feel you've got a good idea for a PhD, then I would encourage you to apply and have a look at the list of potential supervisors and see if you can see someone there that you might develop your idea with. That's certainly no barrier. In the olden days, we always used to suggest that newly qualified nurses went away and did quite a few years of clinical practice, but nowadays I welcome anyone keen to develop a clinical research career to get going as soon as possible. It's often handicapped nurses to get them to hold back compared to other disciplines. So yeah, if you feel you've got the background, go for it.
I think there's a question from Daniel about feedback on previous application.
So we didn't offer feedback to round 1. There was feedback at round 2. It's quite difficult at round 1 really to offer that on the basis of the number of people applying. We had about 100 applying in round 1, which and then about a quarter of them were allowed through to round 2, and we appointed 5. You'll appreciate that it's quite difficult on the basis of the answers in round 1.
I think there were some general points for some people. There were people applying who perhaps fancied doing a PhD, but didn't really have any thoughts about how they had or were going to develop a clinical academic career. So it sounded like it would be a nice thing to do, but there were no real plans for developing that. And this is very much about developing those careers. And we do take the questions around equality, diversity, inclusion very importantly, and around patient-public involvement in research. And quite often, I think those things were not attended to with a great deal of thought. And so don't skimp on those, take them seriously. We value those aspects of this programme, and we'll be looking for evidence that that's something you've thought about and applied yourself to.
Thank you. Any more final questions?
I think we're more or less at time, Nora.
Right, so if anything else comes up, please do get in touch with us at cato@kcl.ac.uk, and we'll be able to answer your queries by email.
Can I just say there is another webinar next week for nurses and allied health professionals. So we're not going to repeat all of this, but there's particular questions you have or a bit more thought about that, do register and come along for that. The information's on the website for this programme. Just sign up and we'll see you next week.
Right, thanks so much, Alan.
Great.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Good
you
luck,
very
everyone.
much. Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Good luck.